Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com.
Do you love animals and want to make a real difference? At the Animal Alliance, we believe that no cat or dog should be euthanized due to overpopulation. Our solution is simple: spay and neuter. Visit theanimalalliance.org to see how you can help us create a future where every pet has a chance at life. Join our mission today at theanimalalliance.org.
Okay. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And today we have another great guest. And again, when I saw his profile come across my email, I was like, man, I got to get this guy on. It's going to be an exciting conversation. I have lots and lots of questions. And I feel like it's going to be a great story, just the transformation of where he's been. So Jeremiah Solven is the guest. He's currently, looks like he's out in Florida, just enjoying, man, the day out there looks beautiful. The swimming pool in the background, big palm trees, big glass window. I could be hard to be depressed there. So pretty. But Jeremiah, he's a former Army Ranger, entrepreneur, leadership and high performance coach. He's really went from the military, took what he learned in the military and decided to challenge himself to tackle the next big thing. And if you've ever been in any form of coaching, growing a coaching business is not an easy feat. Building up the credibility and helping people understand why you are credible. Even though you spent years becoming credible, nobody knows, especially if you came from the military, where it's a very closed loop of people who even know what your accomplishments are and can relate with your accomplishments, which I'm grateful for, by the way. Thank you so much for your service. But that's why I'm excited to have you on and kind of dig into this. But go ahead and tell us your story as far as early childhood. What was your family life like growing up? Where did you grow up? What led you into the military? And then what ultimately led you out of that and into this new career path?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the intro, by the way, Sam. Good. Really insightful into how it is as a military guy coming out and being a coach. It's very true. It's like, I've been a coach since 2019. So I started my coaching business while on active duty. I was a full-time company commander, and I used to, if you've ever served in the military, that's a 24/7 job. You work every single hour of the day, 7 days a week. And so I found myself waking up at like 2:00 in the morning, building the business and then coaching clients in the evening. And then I ended up running 100 miles in the Colorado Rockies and decided it was time for me to separate from service and go all in on the business. But to answer your question, guys, yeah, it's where I'm at today is, man, I never would have thought that I'd be where I am. I mean, I got published in Forbes magazine. I've published in Entrepreneur magazine. I've coached 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs. I coach leaders inside of $1 billion company. And I got a freaking Lamborghini in the driveway, a pool in the backyard. And it's like, I didn't come from this. I didn't come from this level of, I guess you would call it success. I still feel like I have a long way to go. I come from a small town in Northern California, 300 people. I used to hunt bear with my dad as a kid. Like, that was my childhood, sheltered, small town. Didn't really know what success was like in the world and wanted to be an athlete. I was one of those guys. Like, I got into high school, could hold my own in wrestling, and went from really shitty to pretty good, but pretty good wasn't good enough to go on after high school and be the elite level wrestler that I wanted to. So basically, long story short, what happened to me was that I drifted after I failed at my first dream of being an athlete, like a lot of people do. Found myself just wandering through life, getting drunk at like 12:00 in the afternoon, 2:00 in the afternoon, came home one day and decided, hey man, enough is enough. I need to change this situation. I feel dead, empty inside, unfulfilled. So I joined the military actually out of desperation. Like a lot of people join for patriotism and whatnot. I just joined because I wanted out of my situation. So ended up enlisting into the military. Before I joined the military, I worked at a temp agency making minimum wage. I tried to get a job at a restaurant, like a 2-star restaurant that everybody knows. They wouldn't hire me, but ended up joining the military as an engineer. So I was doing civil engineer work when I first came in. I'd help build roads, fix craters, stuff like that. And when I got through the military pipeline, I ended up in Iraq at 19 years old. So I turned 20 and 21 in Iraq, and that was in 2006. So I was there for 15 months, and I was still kind of searching for what I was going to do next in life. And I was laying down. There was a gun. I was doing this mission where there was a gunfight. So I was putting in a patrol base for the 82nd Airborne, the infantry. That was my job. I was putting in a camp for them. And the 82nd were going through this village, and they were clearing it. Apaches were coming in. They were firing, dropping bombs on the bad guys and everything. And I was sitting over there about a mile from the location, just watching it all late at night, feeling helpless, feeling like, man, like, what am I doing over here as an engineer? And so what ended up happening is, like, I'm laying there between some concrete barriers, my gun's on my chest, I'm sweating because it's hot and it's Iraq. And I just hear this gunfight going on. Meanwhile, there was at the same time, we had a young officer in my unit. He was killed. He was killed by a roadside bomb. An IED went off under his vehicle and killed him. So I'm like in this place where I'm like reflecting a lot on life, and being in Iraq at 20 and realizing that moment that I didn't want to be an engineer. I wanted to be part of the fight. I said, man, I shouldn't be over here. I should be over there. And what that turned into was me chasing a new dream. I decided to become an infantry officer. I put in an application for a program that took me from enlisted to officer. And then I went back to school, and the infantry was very competitive. So I failed a ton, but I ended up getting my commission. And then I tried out for special operations. So a mentor came into my life, and he really believed in me. I struggled believing in myself. I still had that small town thinking, that small town mind. And I had big time imposter syndrome as an infantry officer, big time. I didn't believe that I could be in charge of an infantry platoon, an infantry commander. I sure as hell didn't think I could be responsible for special operations soldiers. So basically, this guy believed in me. He started mentoring me. I tried out, and I got approved to join the 75th Ranger Regiment. So for those of you guys that don't know, the Ranger Regiment is a special operations unit. It's underneath the United States Army Special Operations Command. So underneath the USASOC, you have the Navy SEALs, you have MARSOC, the Marine Special Operations, and you have the 75th Rangers. Okay, those are some of the teams that you have under there. So I went from college dropout to now I'm in a tier 2 special operations unit, and I'm the infantry officer in charge of a Ranger platoon, which is a pretty big responsibility. And then our platoon was specially selected to go do high value target raids against guys overseas. So we were given capture or kill missions, and our job was to sneak in, either grab them, pull them out, or eliminate them. And we did that overnight in the middle of darkness, and I was the officer responsible for that platoon. So my last Ranger mission, we get into a big gunfight. We go in to capture this target, and it's a mission gone south. And what ends up happening is there's a barricaded shooter in a 2-story compound, and he's upstairs with a kid inside, and he's shooting down on top of our guys. He's throwing grenades down on top of our guys, and my strike force starts getting injured. Meanwhile, there's additional fighters in the compound that we're clearing. So we get machine gun fire, we get small arms fire from the village that we're in because it's a contested area. And basically it just turns into this giant gunfight around this compound that we're trying to go capture or kill this guy. And I got about 80 US and Afghan forces on the ground. Okay, so there's about 80 Americans and Afghans on the ground with some other people that were out there that it's compartmentalized. But bottom line is that we were outmatched. A bunch of guys got hurt, and unfortunately we had to withdraw that night. So my last Ranger mission, like, I was living this dream, but it turned into a nightmare during that mission. And unfortunately, after that night, we returned back to the US, and I had to go on with my career, and I had to leave the organization. I had to leave special operations to do my next assignment, my next academics. I had to go to the captain's career course, learn how to be an infantry commander. So basically what happened there is I hit a really dark and low point, felt like I failed as a leader. I started drinking a ton. I put a gun to my head, almost ended it, and decided not to, and basically took all the pain and took all the failure and decided I was going to make myself better instead of run from the problems and exit life, you know? So I started working really, really hard on myself. I started cutting bad habits, drinking, the party lifestyle. I started cutting all those things from my life. And I learned that like success was subtractive. I just started pulling this stuff away from my life. And the more bad habits I pulled away, the more I started feeling good about myself, the more I started becoming successful outside of the military. My relationship started growing stronger. My money started doing better. I started succeeding more in business. And so what ended up happening is I did another deployment after that, my 4th combat deployment. After I got back from that deployment, I kept challenging and pushing myself physically and mentally, just trying to stretch myself as a man, as a leader, and as an athlete. I signed up for a 100-mile race for the Colorado Rockies. I had no train up. I'd never done 100 miles before in my life. I had ran like a marathon max before. But I signed up for this race on a Sunday, and I went out and ran it the following Saturday. So 6 days later, no train up. It was like a suicide mission. I was out, but I just signed up for it because I wanted to explore myself. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see how far I could go. And I wanted to find myself because I was at a point in my career where I had accomplished my dream. Then I had to work on myself, and I had built myself up, and I was kind of trying to figure out what was next in life. Am I going to keep serving, or am I going to separate from service? So what ended up happening is I go out there, and that's a whole story in itself, but I ran that 100 miles. It was in the Colorado Rockies at 11,000 feet. So it wasn't just 100 miles like in Florida down here at sea level. It was at 11,000 feet average. Like that's hard to breathe.
You have no air.
No air. So on that race, I realized that, I went to some of the darkest places I've ever been in my life in terms of my memories and traumas and shit like that. But I realized during that race that it was time for me to separate from service and pursue my purpose of coaching and building leaders. So I was out of the military within 4 months, and I had already been coaching people, I'd already been doing executive coaching for about a year at that point. And I just dove right in, left the military, and walked away from the retirement benefits, all the shit that they tell you that you should stay in the service for and retire for. I just walked away from it all, and I built my company. And that led me to doing what I'm doing now. You know, life in Florida. I train at one of the best MMA gyms in the world. It's a passion of mine. I train at Kill Cliff Fight Club. I got some of the best relationships I could ever imagine, multimillionaires, world-class athletes. But it all started from basically just the process of failing forward my entire life, you know?
Awesome. Well, I hope we have time for all of this conversation, but we're going to have probably pick and choose just pieces of it. First off, again, thank you for your service. Thank you for being willing to do hard things and protect our country. I really respect that. And it's not anything I ever want to do ever in my life. So I'm grateful that there's people who are willing to do it. I have too many notes here, but let's start with just kind of this idea of growing up in a small town. What do you feel like were some of the biggest lessons that you gained from growing up in a small town? And what did you like about it? What did you not like about it?
Well, I love that we operated out of imagination and we in the outdoors all the time. We were super active as a kid, you know, like there wasn't we didn't really have TV. We had a black and white TV that my dad, he like hijacked the cable from the neighbors. He like ran up there, split the cable because we didn't have a lot of money growing up. You know, that's one of the reasons why we used to hunt. My dad used to hunt to put food on the table. So growing up in a small town, I learned basically how to be resourceful because we, like I said, we didn't have a ton of money. We had the things that you needed, clothes, shelter, food, you know, all that stuff. But I think the biggest thing that I learned was, how to be resourceful. We were always like, my parents were always hard workers and hustlers. Like my dad had a landscaping business when I was a kid, and my mom worked multiple jobs. And so I think that small town, blue collar culture helped me develop work ethic. I think that's really what I learned there. And I think if I had been in a city or a bigger environment where things were more easy to get, like whether it was groceries or even just fun activities like going to the mall or the skating rink, I don't think that I would have been as creative, and I don't think I would have been as resourceful and as hardworking had I not come from that small town, you know?
Awesome. No, I agree with you. I grew up in a similarly small town, probably not that small, but 2,000 people was like the total. There was maybe 150 people in our whole high school, and very similar, where the fun things to do, you might say, are getting in trouble or doing stupid things, but you grow up kind of doing stupid things, but you also grow up being resourceful. You grow up thinking, man, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen by me, or I'm going to do something about it, rather than just waiting for something else to happen. There's nothing happening in a small town. You could be waiting all day for a blade of grass to move unless you got to go do something about it.
I think that one of the top things I learned was how to overcome fear. Because I lived out in the middle of nowhere, and there was mountain lions, bears. My dad, we hunted bear. So as a kid, I never had an opportunity to run from fear, because my whole environment, I was like nervous, like my parents would say stuff like, hey, be careful if you go out tonight, there's a mountain lion in town. Like they wouldn't say like he ate the neighbor's dog, like be careful out there. It was like that type of living when I was a kid. And so I think that I learned how to live with fear. And I think that's one of the things that, now that you're asking this question, that has helped me over the years, is that I don't run from fear. I lean into it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring this back up in the future, but that's a good note there of fear. I can't imagine. I feel like I did a lot of dumb things as a kid. Now that I have 2-3 kids, and they're like, if they run down the street, I'm like, hey, we need to be out there with you. Don't leave. There's various reasons for that, as far as why I'm more aware of it now. But the level of things that could hurt you, that's a very interesting perspective. Like, hey, just make sure stay away from the mountain lion out there. It might eat you, but sure, you can go to your friend's house.
Well, when people respond to fear, they either flee, they fight, or they freeze, right? And I think a lot of people, as they get older in life, they don't ever develop that muscle to lean into their fear. And so huge advantage as a kid, even though there was a lot of things that I was scared of. And I think that's something that everybody could walk away from the show with, is like really audit yourself and ask yourself if you're living in running from fear. Are you freezing when fear shows up? Are you running from it? Or are you leaning into it? And if you're not leaning into it, you got to teach yourself to, or else life's just going to push you around your whole life,
Right. And one of the things you said while you were there in Iraq, experiencing this firefight or watching this fight happening distance from you, and you're sitting there sweaty, and you're thinking, why am I here, and how could I be of more service? There's a song, I don't know what the name of the song is, but there's a phrase in here that says there's 3 types of people: the people who make things happen, watch things happen, or the people who say what happened. And everybody gets a choice, right? Everybody gets to choose which of those 3 people do you want to be. Do you want to be the person making things happen? Do you want to be the person watching things happen? Or do you want to be the person that's wondering with your hand holding your, thinking what happened, and that's an important thing to go through for you. You were raised being a make things happen type person. And so when you recognize yourself in a watching things happen situation, it's uncomfortable. It's not where you want to be.
Yeah, my parents raised me with the mentality that if you don't like something, you fix it. And so when I was in the military, when I was in Iraq for 15 months, and I was reflecting on what I wanted to get out of life, I was looking at the things that I liked. I liked some things about the military. I didn't like some others, but I realized that I liked some of my leaders and I didn't like the others. And so what I wanted to do was get myself into a position to make a difference, because that belief was in me, right? The belief was, if you don't like something about your situation, you change it. So I'm in the military, and if I like the military, then that means I should do it. And if I have things that I don't like about it, well, I need to fix that problem. So that was becoming an infantry officer was the next best step for me to help me solve the problem that I saw that I didn't like. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of those questions that we were talking about before that I want to highlight, because this is a good question, right? First question is, what do you recognize? What do you complain about all the time? Like, that's the first thing. Like, what are you complaining about? Because if you're complaining about it, that means that you believe that it could be done better. You may not know how to do it better right away, but you believe that there could be a better way of doing it than what's currently being done. You can go for it. Really.
Yeah, I think that the problems that you see in the world are directly tied to your purpose.
Agreed. 1,000%. That's what I was getting at. Is like you have a unique perspective that only you see. Everybody else may not see that as a problem. So if you see it as a problem, I think that's a neon flashing sign from God saying, hey, there's a problem. Go use your skill that I'm giving you right now, your ingenuity, your creativity, your resourcefulness, and go and solve the problem. So the first thing is, what do you complain about? Where do you see problems in the world? And then next question is, what can I do to effectuate positive change? And for you, that meant staying in the military and becoming a leader. Some people, that means, hey, I'm going to get out, and that even happened for you later on in your story. There was a point where you said, look, I could keep going this military route and I could keep making positive change that way, but also I could make positive change in the outside world and maybe have a bigger positive change. My capacity to have more change influence has increased. And now I can fulfill that for more people outside of the military than I was inside the military. And so you don't have to be locked in one spot forever, but making that transition, that's what I love about your story is you made that transition, you knew, you were aware of it, and it was intentional.
Yeah, it's the pain. The pain is a notification from God to guide you towards your purpose, right? So like when I was at college and I'm feeling the pain of dissatisfaction, the pain of not wanting to be there, God is telling me, like my intuition, my conscience is telling me, you need to go a different direction, bro. And like, how else is God supposed to notify you other than feelings? So he puts the pain on you, and then some people avoid the pain. They start drinking and avoid it. Or some people just realize that they're in pain and they want to fix the problem. So boom, that lands me in the military. I'm in Iraq. And I see a problem again. I'm like, man, shitty leaders right here. I don't like this. All right, I'm going to fix that. That changes my career track. And then even starting my business, I started my business out of this from the same lens. I wanted to fix the problem of poor performing leaders in the world. Mm-hmm. I said, I passionately hate it when there is an incompetent leader over a group of people and he doesn't give two shits about his subordinates and his team. It used to get me, I still get mad about it. And I'm like, I get so fired up watching these and the world's a reflection of us. So a lot of the incompetence that I saw was like a reflection of what was inside of me, right? So I'm looking at these leaders and I'm literally just like, this guy's incompetent. He's not prepared enough. But at the same time, I was probably behaving that same way. So it was this weird thing where I'm like, I'm seeing a problem that's a reflection of me. And then I go to fix it. Next thing you know, I find purpose, and that turns into the business. I start building high quality leaders while working on myself,
Yeah. And that's a good question too. Like, are you fixing something for somebody else, or are you actually fixing it to fix it inside of you? Does God allow you to see it in somebody else so that you can fix it in you, or so you can fix them? Right. And that's what I think is so grateful. I'm grateful about the scriptures, is that the scripture about, remove the mote in your own eye before you talk about somebody else's. It's fine that you see the mote in somebody else's eye, but then work on it in yourself first. Be the leader. Don't be the instructor, be the leader. And it's a good balance, right? Because at some point you do have to cast vision, and you may not be a perfect person, but you have to cast vision of where you're all headed and move together as a team rather than one at a time. I want to go back to kind of that situation where you had a failed dream of becoming an athlete, and then you kind of fell into just wandering mindlessness. How did your parents react to that, you being in that state of mindlessness and just kind of getting drunk early, just wasting your life away? How did they respond to that as parents?
I mean, I bottled a lot of my disappointment up, and I think a lot of men do that. I think, well, a lot of people do it, but a lot of men specifically. I think a lot of men hide the way that they feel and they hide their emotions. And I pretty much ran from my problem. I didn't really confront it. The dream that I had to be an athlete was very special to me. I mean, I was training 2-3 times a day. And I have this one memory where it was like the winter time in this little town, Trinity Center, where I was growing up. I was wearing, multiple shirts, a hoodie, sweatpants, kind of like a Rocky scene. And I'm running around Trinity Center trying to sweat and make weight for this tournament. And I'm literally yelling out, state champion, I'm a state champion. I'm just by myself. The snow's coming down. There's a foot of snow on the road. And I was just doing that type of training by myself all the time. But deep down inside, I always doubted whether I could pull it off, And so anyways, I kind of kept my dream close to me, and they all knew I wanted to become an elite level athlete, but it was very sacred. I did keep it more quiet than vocal. And when I failed, it was a huge disappointment, and I just bottled it all up. And so I didn't know what to do. And when you don't know what to do and you don't value your own opinion, you don't trust yourself. Okay. Because I basically started to trust myself. Hey, you can be a state champion. You can be that elite level wrestler. You can go on to college and do it, but then you fail. Next thing you know, you don't trust yourself anymore to listen to what you should do. So you start valuing the opinions of others and you stop valuing the opinion of yourself. So I started listening to everybody else. And I said, well, what's everybody else doing? And my parents expected me to go to school. I hadn't applied for any colleges. So I just found myself in a community college because it was easy to roll into. My friends were doing it. So my parents, they were always very supportive. But in that point in time, it wasn't like they could pick me up and brush me off. I just basically compartmentalized, buried my problems, and buried the disappointment, and then quit on myself and moved. I moved to a town, and I just like 3-4 hours away from where my parents were. And I started going to school, community college. And that's when I just started escaping from it all.
Millions of cats and dogs are euthanized every year because there simply aren't enough homes. At the Animal Alliance, we're tackling this issue head on with accessible spay and neuter services. Your support can help us save lives. Visit theanimalalliance.org to learn more about how you can contribute. Together, we can make a difference.
Okay. So you were out of the house. Nobody was around to be there to mentor you. So you had to kind of figure it out yourself. At this point in today, would you say that you ever became an elite level athlete?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I did an Ironman in Colorado. I've got 4 MMA cage fights underneath my belt. And I did that even after I achieved like success in the military. I just did it as an entrepreneur, I did that 100-mile race in the Rockies. I would say I'm a very accomplished athlete.
I know. I'm being facetious, but I'm doing it for a purpose, right? So sometimes we have these dreams and we feel like because it didn't happen in the time frame that we expected it to happen, then we failed. But you didn't fail. You moved in on your journey. Going into the military, even making it to the Army Rangers, like that's an elite level athlete. Okay. Yeah. Like you had to become an elite level athlete to do that in that field. Now, one of the things that I found interesting was my brother, he went to this conference recently where all these business tycoons and whatever, they were all speaking on stage in front of 6,000 people. And he is like, man, that's so amazing that they get to be up there and they're controlling this room and commanding it, and interacting in front of 6,000 people. I could never do that. Right. So that's his first thought. But his second thought was like 2 weeks earlier, he was on stage in front of 6,000 people singing because he was part of some musical production and he was singing. He had 3 solos. Right. And so like he was doing the same thing with his passion in front of that many people. And so it's okay to have a healthy appreciation for other people's talents and them fulfilling their talents in the area. So if they want to be a college athlete or a professional athlete, whatever that looks like, they can be elite level in those areas, but you're still an elite level, whatever you're doing in your area. So how do you become elite level athlete or professional in the area you're doing? Don't feel like you failed just because it didn't work out in the time frame. You ultimately became an elite level athlete. And that's something that was a dream that you did as a child that's still accomplished.
Yeah. I mean, as an entrepreneur, it's true. And as a Ranger, it's true. I mean, so the Army's 12-mile ruck march is something that all the Army does, right? And you basically go 12 miles with a 45-pound pack, more or less. Okay. It's 35 pounds plus you're going to carry water and stuff, usually about 45 pounds. And the Army standard was 4 hours at the time. And then for the infantry, it was 3 hours. You had to complete 12 miles in 3 hours with 45 pounds. So when I first came in the Army as an enlisted engineer, I struggled to complete the 12 miles in 4 hours. When I left the military, I got the 12-mile ruck march down. I had been a Ranger, got into special operations. I did it in 1 hour and 57 minutes. Like 4 hours to 1 hour and 57 minutes. That put 45 pounds on your back and then go do a 12-mile ruck, which is basically you're doing 9 to 10 minute miles with 45 pounds in your back. Like that's a pretty good change. But what did it for me, and this is a strategy for everybody in your life, is once I got myself in the right environment, my standards and my performance changed. Like I didn't know that you could do the 12-hour ruck march in under 2 hours until I started getting around top level people. And as I started getting around top level people, I got exposed. And like the law of exposure says, that which you see, you can't unsee. And once I saw it, I said, damn, like that's how you do it. And I started working my way closer and closer and closer. And that elevated me tremendously. And so going from 4 hours down to 1 hour and 57 minutes on the 12-mile ruck march was a huge accomplishment for mine. And not only that, but then getting to the 75th, I mean, to give you guys some numbers, my journey in the military was like, I was like the water boy of the flag football team. And then the next thing you know, I'm fucking in the NFL, 9 years later. And so it's the 1% of the 1%. These guys are awesome, man. And just highly sensitive missions that they do is an honor being there. But the point is that if you really want to level yourself up, you want to change your life, cultivating your environment is like not only important, it's a requirement. And the military like taught me how to win a war, right? One of the things that they taught me was that if you want to win a war, you have to have a 3-to-1 ratio against your enemy. So if your enemy is life and you want to succeed at life, you want to defeat life, you have to stack up the odds 3-1 in order to win that battle. And one of the easiest ways that everybody can increase the odds of success in their life, the 3-1 ratio, is to cultivate a winning environment. And that's what I did. I just threw myself right in there. And even as an MMA athlete now, I've done the same thing, kept throwing myself into tougher and tougher training teams and just get better and better,
Yeah, I love that. So let's dive into that, because I think a big part of environment, one is placing yourself in the environment where you chose, like, out of desperation to go into the military and put yourself in an environment. My brother, another brother, did a similar thing. He joined the Marines because he's like, well, I need to learn discipline. I'm kind of like all over. I don't know how to just like do what needs to be done when it needs to be done. And so he joined the Marines to basically learn discipline, which, more power to him. Again, I'm grateful for him. But it's an interesting reason to go there. It's like everybody has their own journey and why they go somewhere. But something you also said is you're kind of in this scenario, you're just kind of managing through life. And then even after you decided you wanted to go and make things happen rather than watch things happen, you still were failing at that process until you found a mentor, or rather a mentor found you and believed in you. So part of it's getting yourself in the right environment. Part of it's being willing to be coachable. Talk to us about how, maybe more in detail, how your mentor engaged with you and how did he become that position in your life, or that role, and start that mentorship process.
Yeah, so the teacher appears when the student's ready, right? That's really how it is. When everybody here has a teacher or coach or mentor that's right there ready for them, they just have to look around and see it. As the saying goes, a fish sees water last. Like, there's a mentor right in front of you, but you got to be looking. And in my life, and this is true for everybody else's life, there's always that mentor that's there. And I grouped all of my mentors up into a persona. So anybody that's ever guided me in life and been a great leader in my life, I call them Major Steel. So Major Steel, like as a kid, he was like a parent or maybe my wrestling coach. And then as I got into the military, he was different leaders that I had over me. In entrepreneurship, he was either people I hired or I just got lucky and got around. But either way, my point is that everybody has a Major Steel in their life at every point in their life if they're looking for them. And I was looking, I wanted to do, when I was an infantry PL in the conventional army, I had a burning desire to do something great with my life, and I wanted to redeem myself as a failed athlete. And I had this vision for who I could become. I knew that I could become this ranger, this operator, but I still saw myself as a small town kid. I saw myself as a college dropout. I saw myself as a failed athlete. So my self-image was really, really low. And not only that, but I was living two lives. After I had worked my way through school and become an infantry officer, that was very, very challenging for me. First of all, I had to readjust from Iraq back to a college environment. And adjusting back from war after being there is just crazy and stressful. But the point is, I failed a ton in college, multiple classes failed, and I was alone, didn't really have a network, and also wasn't sure I could pull off the dream that I had of being an infantry officer, getting into the Rangers. But I just grinded through it all, I just put my head down and failed forward. And when I got to my first unit, Major Steele was there. And he brought me in and he started basically believing in me. He's like, hey, have you ever thought about getting into special operations? Have you ever thought about getting into the 75th Ranger Regiment? And I wanted that deep down. I really didn't even tell anybody, but as soon as he said it, I was like, man, yeah, I do want that, but I don't know if I can do it, right? The doubt came in. So he really started, the mentor, what he really did for me is and this is for everybody here, getting around the right mentor can change how you perceive yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, find somebody that does. And it really helped me change my self-image. And that made me start to believe that I could become the Ranger. That means I could become the operator. And as I continued to get mentors moving forward, one of the biggest things that helped me personally transform from small Chi-town kid and failure is I worked very, very heavily on my self-image. There's a lot of ways that I went about that. I created a persona for myself. So I used to wake up in the morning and train, and I'd go do cardio sessions, and I would just pretend to be that future version of me. And even now as an entrepreneur, I've kept using this tool over and over again, rehearsing the different versions of me that I could become. And so the more I rehearse it, you have to be before you become in life, right? Like a champion is a champion before he ever wins the belt. He does champion habits, and then he becomes a champion. So I was living this life where I was operating like a ranger. I was trying to mirror them, model those guys' habits. I was picking up books that they would read and really working on me. And then I arrived at that destination one day. But the problem was that I was living like two lives. So when I had the uniform on, this is a lot of people. When I went to work and I had the uniform on, I was like Captain America, right? I'm like crushing it. I'm on point, yada, yada. But then when I took the uniform off, it was like, hey, no rules, bro. You do whatever the hell you want. You're not freaking Captain America anymore. And I just start, I'd either drink socially, drink heavily, party on the weekends. And so what ended up happening is I developed massive imposter syndrome because of my habits, and I was not being the leader that I thought I could be, right? And a lot of leaders struggle with imposter syndrome. They don't feel like they should be in that position. And that was me. So I would try to outwork my imposter syndrome. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to do a great job. I'm going to get home. Friday night's going to hit. I'm going to go out to the bars, get tanked, regret my decisions. So guys, remember this about building your self-image. Your self-image is directly tied to the habits that you have when no one's looking.
Imagine a world where every pet is wanted and loved. The Animal Alliance is making this vision a reality by focusing on spay and neuter programs to control the pet population. You can be part of this life-saving mission. Visit theanimalalliance.org to find out how you can help. Every little bit makes a big difference.
Okay, you will not feel good about yourself unless you fix your habits that you're not proud of when nobody's watching. So I don't know what that is for you. If you have some vice that you're holding on to, if you have it's whatever your conscience is calling you to get rid of, that's the thing that you got to strip away, or that imposter syndrome is going to be a motherfucker to get rid of.
Yeah, absolutely. So when as he's helping you, there's something that I finished one of John C. Maxwell's most recent books, The Ultimate Guide to Leadership Development. And one of the things he said is like, once you become a mentor, the real sign or of leadership, or that kind of fifth stage of leadership and mentorship, is that you start mentoring mentees, right? So not only are you mentoring, but the person that you mentored is now mentoring other people. And so you got somebody who believed in you, asked, and I think a big thing that you said I want to highlight about how they asked, how he started that process was just asking questions, right? Hey, have you thought about this? What would life be like if you did this? And here's the thing that I've experienced, and sounds like you've experienced it as well, is how does it explain to us, how does it feel like when somebody sees your inner desires without you ever saying them, but can see that you want to accomplish something that you're too scared to vocalize, but they see that and then they ask you about it? How do you feel at that point?
That's what great leaders do, though. And that's what separates them from good leaders. Great leaders, great mentors, they pull your dreams out of you. They make you feel special. They make you feel seen. Imagine in your life how many people have said that you could be something incredible. So they saw the special in you. They pulled out your dream and acknowledged it. Not very many people do that. And so when a leader comes up to you and they see greatness inside of you, they see what's special inside of you, and they speak that not only does it mean something to you, but it makes that person very memorable and very influential, because now you're speaking the same language from the heart and from the soul.
Yeah, and there's no ulterior motives. Like this just happened to me yesterday, and like I feel like I have a pretty good self-concept. Like I'm not like I don't poop on myself very often mentally, but when somebody recognizes something that I don't really see as a gift necessarily in me, then I'm grateful for it. So my friend Tiffany Rosenbaum, she's a business leader here in Phoenix, built this massive company. She's been on a few calls with me and in other circumstances, and she's heard me introduce myself multiple times at this point and kind of share the concept of how I introduce myself. And so she texted me on Facebook the other day, and she's like, "Hey, Sam, the way you introduce yourself is amazing. I want you to teach me how to introduce myself better," right? And it's something that I've put a lot of effort into introduce myself. I have a whole philosophy and whole diagram and everything behind my philosophy about it. Yeah. But it's not something that like other people really have ever recognized, but it's something that I put a lot of work into, you know? And what's cool about it is from a financial perspective, she's by all accounts doing significantly better than I am, right? If you look like, well, who's the more professional person, right? Her probably at this point, as far as income. But it doesn't matter what level you're at in income. Everybody can learn something from somebody else. And great leaders are I think like my favorite leaders are the ones who are not trying to teach all the time, but the ones who are trying to learn more often. And they're asking questions because they recognize, oh, there's something there somebody's good at. How are you doing it? But then at the same time they're teaching that, they're asking those questions. They're also inviting you to level up yourself and become more. And that's why I consider her one of the leaders in my life, is because of how she responds in these situations. She's great at pulling stuff out of people that they don't see in themselves. And that was amazing. So I just want to give her a shout out. But the same type of thing happened.
It's very true, man. I mean, good leaders will make you better, but great leaders will make you a better you. You know what I mean? Like they'll pull out what's better out of you and make you more of that. It's like they'll recognize, great leaders will make you realize, they'll realize that you're a lion and they'll try to make you more of a lion. Whereas like a good leader will know that you're an animal and they'll just tell you to do lion shit. Like that you might, or maybe they'll tell you to do dolphin stuff. You're a lion inside and he's trying to make you be a dolphin. Like, go do this dolphin work, you know? And it's like, no, great leaders, they make you the lion. They pull that out of you and they see it and they help you become it.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to get into something. I know we're going to not fully run out of time, but I want to ask you some questions that hopefully you answer. If you don't want to answer them, the rule on my podcast is if you don't want to answer it, just tell me you don't want to answer it. Okay. But I am curious and I think it'll be impactful and helpful. So I've talked to a few people who have been in the military at different levels of the military, and PTSD is something that most people experience. And when I say most people, I actually mean most people, not just military members, but I feel like there's a higher percentage and the severity of the PTSD is higher in military members than the rest of the world. But other people will sometimes discount their PTSD because it's not from the same source as somebody who served in the military. But I think that it's a relatable topic that everybody can benefit from digging into some of the weeds here. So I want to ask some questions about that as a label here, but as you're leading, I mean, you're leading these military platoons and commanding, like you're commanding these people, and undoubtedly some of those people don't make it back home, and you are the leader of the thing. How do you process through and either prepare for that being an eventual reality before it happens, as well as dealing with it when it does happen? Whether you are in the commanding position, or maybe it was just your friend next to you. But what I've experienced is a lot of military individuals, they feel guilty that they're still here and somebody's not. And so I just want to know, like, from your words, how have you processed through that, or what was your process? Because everybody has these experiences. People aren't always dying around you, but people are being impacted around you. And we sometimes we take more ownership than we should. Sometimes we don't take enough. So I'm just curious how you deal with that.
Fuck yeah, no, I mean, it ties in just to dealing with trauma, period, you know? And here's just to give some perspective on my situation. So I had my last Ranger mission, I probably had about 12 casualties. None of them died, but one guy lost an eye under my leadership. Most of them had shrapnel. Most of them were concussed. Every unit and team that I have been in since I served has had somebody either killed overseas or died when they returned back from the deployment after I had left, whether I was there or when I left. So death has been around me. I've had soldiers that tried to commit suicide when I was their commanding officer. There's quite a few. So what I'll speak from is that leader guilt is a real thing. Whether you're owning a business or you're leading your household, you're going to feel like you fail either your kids, your coworkers, whatever. It doesn't matter what the experience was. You know, we live in a messed up world where sometimes the kids like experience like whatever sexual trauma, and the parents are going to beat themselves up about that, right? It's like, oh, it's my fault. It's my fault. And regardless of how the trauma shows up in your life, the thing that you do not want to do is compartmentalize and run from it. You know, I had to learn that the hard way. And that's why I put a gun to my head one night. I didn't realize how much that mission, my last Ranger mission, how much it affected me, how much I felt like I failed as a leader. Because basically what had happened is I felt like all those years, I felt like I was trying to outwork my imposter syndrome, right? I was like, I'm going to prove that I'm not an imposter. I belong in this organization. And then I do go to the last Ranger mission. I go on that op and it goes south. And it was like, and then I leave the organization and I'm alone. I was away from my wife during this period for like 2 years. And I was confronted with all of my insecurities, that I wasn't good enough for that job. I shouldn't have been there in the first place. All the negative self-talk started, and the negative self-talk got amplified because of the excess drinking, the escaping, the avoidance, and so none of it really changed until that night where I put a gun to my head and I said I was ready to just fucking end it, because not only did I fail as a leader, but there was other stuff in my personal life going on that I hadn't addressed either. And so, I'm just in my hands, just crying, and then put a gun to my head and I'm like, decided not to do it. And what ended up happening was like, I had made a promise to God along the way for that dream. I told him, I said, hey, if you help me get this job as a Ranger, I'm going to promise to pay it forward tenfold, and I would give in advance. I would try to uphold that promise in advance. And then I got the job and it was like winning the lottery for me, And so in that moment when I almost ended it, all I could hear was the commitment that I had to God. It was, hey, you promised that you were going to pay it forward. You can't quit. You can't tap out. You can't give up right now. You promised. And so I put the gun down and I started working on me. And this is what I learned, that if you struggle with leadership failure, I had in trauma, I basically started working on my morning process, right? And I had to build a better version of me. That's what I did. So I started working on my morning routine even deeper. I journal every single day. I haven't missed a day of journaling in years. I've been doing it for, I think over 6 years now. And I don't miss a day. Okay. And doesn't matter what time it is, what I'm doing, but I journal and I go through my thoughts. I go through everything that I'm going through, and then I reframe the experience, and then I write about where I'm going next. And that helps me really give myself an emotional cleanse. And a lot of people with trauma, you're basically carrying around a emotional diaper. So when you have trauma in your mind, it's basically like a used diaper that you're just like, or not a diaper, but like you got to go to the bathroom. It's an emotional response. Like you got to take an emotional piss, right? All the trauma is piss. You got to pee, you got to pee, you got to pee. And you don't ever let it out. Eventually you piss yourself with the trauma. Like you have a panic attack or a heart attack or something. So in order to process your emotions, for me, journaling was the thing that did it. And it allowed me to confront all the things that I was going through. And now I do it religiously. And so second to that was I started confronting the things I was resisting in my life. So I knew that drinking was a problem, and I just started attacking it day by day. And I teach my clients this for life transformation and to create businesses. I teach them that what they need to do to change their life, you create 4 goals, figure out where you want to go, who you want to be. We reverse engineer that, break it into 4 milestones. That's your big 4. And then every day you're going to do 5 things that you have resistance towards that are going to get you closer to those goals. And you get all 5 done, you conquer the day. So I've done that in my life. And that's actually one of the processes that helped me get into the 75th Ranger Regiment. It's one of the processes that helped me run 100 miles, get out of the military, build my business. I mean, I've hit, 100K months in my business by using that process. And it all started from confronting my resistance. So that's what I would recommend to anybody that's going through a leadership failure is you need to build a better version of you. And you start with a good structured morning routine, high performance routine, get a fitness program, a training program, get a nutrition program, and just build the best version of you and focus on discipline and consistency. And that'll build up your value, your internal stock, and your self-worth. And you'll stop beating yourself up so much for the mistakes that you've made. And through that, you'll become a whole version that you've forgiven.
Awesome. I appreciate that so much. We got to end here, but I really wanted you to speak to that because you've had multiple experiences of failure and multiple experiences of being on that edge of like that transformation, whereas I got to do something different. I got to change, and then actually went and changed. And I think that that's a message that doesn't matter where, as he said, it doesn't matter what area you're in. Leadership failure is that we're feeling responsible for failure in leadership. There's things you can control and there's things you can't control. And taking too much ownership for the stuff you can't control doesn't help you either. But for me, journaling has been my savior as well in that respect. I have 4 questions that I ask myself. What factually happened? No emotions allowed in that segment of my journal. Just what are the facts about it? And then I allow myself to write all of my emotions, positive, negative, whatever the emotional responses were. And then reframing is what he said. I call it I write what could also be true, right? And I start brainwashing myself with the best magical story of why other people did what they did, why I did what I did. Like, I'm giving myself all of the best reasons to have been doing something, and I'm giving everybody else the most grace that I can possibly think of why they chose to do the things they did. So like some of my things that I deal with are like, oh, well, if somebody was sexually abusing somebody, then why, like, rather than saying they're horrible and wrong, they should never do that, which is true, by the way, I'm not saying that that's not true, but like, think of how much trauma they went through that they needed to, for their own pain to be satisfied, they needed to inflict pain on somebody else. Like, that's a sad situation. Does that mean you'd be around that person? No, but you can start to have compassion and not hate in your heart, because hate in your heart doesn't go well. And then the last thing is, why are you grateful that you experienced it? What did you learn from it? Where are you going? What's it going to look like in the future if you actually were to benefit from this experience? And those 4 questions have helped me through my life of reframing and getting through some of the crap that I've been through. And so I'm grateful that you were able to share that. Oh, yeah. If somebody wanted to be coached by you or hear you speak or get more interaction with you, where would they go to experience more of Jeremiah?
I'm the most active on Instagram. So you just shoot me a DM on Instagram if you can do that. And just tell me where you're coming from. Tell me the podcast, your name, and all that stuff. Just say legacy in the DM if you're coming from this one. That way it helps speed up where I know you're coming from. And then if that didn't work or whatever, you could do the website, which is Conquer Academy, www.conqueracademy.com. And I offer a strategy session there. So you could fill that out and book a call with me. But I say only do that if you're actually like committed to what you're committed to change. You're committed to make a difference. You're truly committed to changing your situation, your business, your life. Only do that if you're actually committed to it. But other than that, just message me on Instagram or any other social media platforms. Facebook is Jeremiah Solven. I'm on YouTube. I just started doing more stuff on YouTube, so you guys can check me out there. But hit me up on Instagram and let's just chat.
Awesome. Hey, appreciate you so much, Jeremiah. And go and rank and comment on this podcast. Give it a 5-star review. And more importantly, go follow him on social media. If nothing else, consume all of his free content and just have a better Major Steele in your life. Because whether you know him or not, he can be that for you. He can feed into your life and speak into your life through Instagram, through YouTube for free. It doesn't cost anything, but just go do that. And then when you're ready to take action and really step it up to the next level, reach out to him. He wants to meet with you if you want to meet with him. So thank you so much. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy show.
Preventing pet overpopulation is the key to ending pet euthanasia. The Animal Alliance is committed to spay and neuter programs to save lives. Visit theanimalalliance.org today to support our mission. Together, we can ensure that every pet has a chance at a happy, healthy life. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.